Welcome to Mixology, where Shannon Howard and I talk about the intersection of customer education and customer marketing as the scale engines to customer success. This time, we are talking about customer lifecycle with our first guest ever, Val Geisler, the Director of Retention and Lifecycle Marketing at ByHeart. We're focusing on who maps it, who owns it, and what to do with it. And we're doing it with a Marionberry lemonade. Marionberries are a hybrid blackberry raspberry from Oregon, my state. Here's the ingredients: some frozen Marionberries, about 2/3 of a cup, 4 ounces of simple syrup, 4 ounces of lemon juice, and 4 ounces of mineral water. The lemonade recipe is from my favorite chef, my husband. Just add the simple syrup and lemon juice to a shaker filled with ice. Shake it until you feel the cold. Place the frozen Marionberries in your glass to act as ice. Add the lemonade base and top with the mineral water. I have to admit, this one has been very refreshing, and you can mix it with alcohol if you want. I used a 15-ounce glass to put it all in, so there was plenty of room. And of course, you may choose to muddle some fresh berries as well and mix them in. So grab your glass, listen in, and join the conversation in the comments below. So as we get started this time, number one, special guest, welcome Val.
Hi.
And then number two, our drink this time is, can you see it? It is a Marionberry lemonade. So non-alcoholic in this version, because right now it's 7 o'clock in the morning for me. But the reality is, of course, you could mix it with whatever you like. We talked about that earlier on when I did the mix the drink part. So our topic this time is customer life cycle and all of the structure around that. What is it? Who owns it? How do you build it? And how do you do like a CTA, right? How do you actually action items against the life cycle? So let's get started with the what is it bit of the like. And here, Val, here's the big question that I get a lot is if we talk customer life cycle and customer journey, are we talking about the same thing?
Depends on who you ask on both. Uh, so actually, I wrote about this on LinkedIn fairly recently. There's this idea that customer lifecycle marketing is everything that all the messaging a customer receives up until or prospect, I guess, technically receives until they become a customer, until they convert. And then once they've converted, that is now customer support's problem. Customer success, customer support, that's their problem. And so then quote, life cycle just stops. Well, if you look up the dictionary definition of life cycle, it is the full life cycle, like the full cycle of a life if you think about a butterfly, its life cycle is caterpillar, chrysalis, butterfly, flying however far it does until it dies. And then then we get a new caterpillar, or maybe it lays eggs and that is the new caterpillar. But it's not like they go into their chrysalis and then that's it. That in the scientific definition, that's not a life cycle. That's like a part of a life cycle. So I think we get really confused in marketing because marketers tend to describe life cycle as like up until the point of conversion. And I think that's largely because of the way we organize companies is like up until conversion is marketing, and then anything else after that is CS. And truly, life cycle and customer journey are a collaboration between those two teams. And it might be like CS is like support and success. There's even an argument that like there's another team involved in that sales. And so there's no way that one team can completely own a customer journey end to end. And there's no like really one solid definition across the board of either of these things, but it definitely is a collaborative effort. There are teams who own particular pieces of it. And when we talk about life cycle, we're typically talking about email and SMS marketing, messaging customers get about the product. But, again, like in the world of customer marketing, that falls under when we're marketing to existing customers, they're getting emails, they're getting SMS messages. customer marketing and life cycle marketing can even extend into the product. What are they seeing on the website? What are they seeing in the app? It's a very collaborative kind of function and requires you to like shift your perspective on um, ownership versus intention, right? So like you can own, I build the emails and send those in our ESP. Great, that's your ownership, but your intention is to influence the entire life cycle and to think about the customer from the moment that they learn about your brand all the way through their time as a customer, however long that is.
So they should kind of be the same, right? A life cycle and a journey should be parallel, where the life cycle, right? That well, or maybe not parallel, maybe like DNA strands.
Yeah, a little bit. So life cycle is like the path that, so there's, yeah, life cycle is the path that your customers are going on, the experience that they have with your brand. Customer journey can be mapped in two different ways. One is the path that your customers are going on today. So that typically is like parallel to life cycle marketing. And then the other is the ideal path that you want them to be on. And I was just talking to another customer marketer about this. One thing I love to do is to have those maps. Like, okay, here are the emails we're sending. Here are the messages they're getting. Here's their experience that they're having today. And of course, you have different cohorts that have different types of experiences. So you might have a few versions of that. And then taking that and saying, like, okay, well, what is this what we want it to be? And if not, like literally going into Miro, Whimsical, or whatever, building that path, and then duplicate that board and move things around. And then I always think about those. It, I'm dating myself with this reference, but those slide projectors in like science class, where they would layer the sheets of plastic over one another. That's what we need to do to understand customer journey fully, is say, layering them. What do we have today and where do we want it to go? And in an ideal scenario, you are looking at that on a regular basis. And over time, those two maps, that Venn diagram becomes one circle, right? The two maps start to look like each other because you're doing the work that gets you to that ideal state versus just kind of delivering on what you do today, which I think is where most customer journey plans kind of stall out, is the difference between, okay, we mapped what we're doing today, the end, and then that was done in 2022 and it's now you're ending, it's the end of 2023 and you're like, it's very different experience, the product is different. Maybe you've even pivoted to like working with entirely different industries and types of customers. So now you have to constantly look at it and say, is this the right current experience? And then what do we want our ideal experience to be? And like for me as a life cycle leader, what I would want to see over time is like a deck that shows every month, here's the overlap. And so then I can like scroll, like those flip books, you can like scroll through the
Right.
deck and see, oh, it's getting better, or, oh no, we're getting farther away from where we want it to be. So you can track that over time. It's like how you can kind of report on customer journey.
I like that. It kind of goes back to when we were talking about vision and strategy and planning and like knowing where you want things to go so you can start to work in that direction and track toward that. So, second question, we usually talk about customer marketing and customer education.
Mm.
Why is it important for people in either of those worlds to understand the life cycle? Isn't my job marketing to customers, or isn't my job to create education materials or programs or content? Why do people need to know about the life cycle? How does that factor into their role?
Yeah. I mean, how do people know about your education programs? like you can create them all day long and like, oh, well, we put them in the Academy portal. Okay. But do you really truly believe that your customers are like waking up in the morning going, can't wait to log into that Academy portal and see what's new today? They don't.
Okay, hold on. They don't?
They don't. It's
Really?
amazing. I know. And did you know that they don't read every blog on your website? They don't read every
No.
email you send, even like what?
I think you just offended
It's
a
true.
lot of people, but
I know. I
you're
know.
not wrong.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but like that's the unfortunate truth. It's like
Your
our
Wistia
customers
stats
are
are true.
humans. Yeah. Our customers are humans and they need direction and guidance. And Lifecycle is a perfect opportunity to plug all of your education moments into that life cycle. So, if you have a very kind of advanced, robust product with like lots of moving parts and pieces, um, you don't necessarily want to introduce all of those on day one. We're not going to send an email on someone's first day to the product and say, here's the Academy portal, go for it. In an ideal scenario, when customer ed and lifecycle work together, you're able to map your education content to that customer journey and then be able to plug it in to those like automated flow emails of, okay, here's where you are in your customer journey and your life cycle. Let's talk to you about this piece of content right now, and kind of walk the path along with the customer so that they have the experience that you want them to have and that is a good experience for them, for the brand. And ultimately, like, I'm a retention geek, so like that impacts your customer retention long term, is that they didn't feel overwhelmed on day 3 and just peace out. Like they felt like, oh, this company, the people behind this company, they get what I'm dealing with and they want me to be successful. So they're going to like kind of slowly pull back the curtain versus just opening it wide.
Throwing you in the deep end of the swimming pool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's like an effective swim training technique apparently for babies, but most of us are working with adults and adults are a lot harder to teach how to swim.
It's true. I think what you're talking about too also maybe makes us think a little bit more about that full life cycle, because you were talking earlier about how most people think there's kind of the prospect journey and then the customer journey. We forget they didn't magically become a different person at the point of sale. They're still the same person, like taking the
Yeah.
same journey. It's just maybe different teams that are responsible for those parts of the journey. And I think often we get like really focused on onboarding and then we forget there's
More past that.
feature releases. Yeah. And there's the entire life cycle. And, there's re-onboarding. I've worked on so many programs that are onboarding for new admins, because we often think of onboarding as when you initially sign a new customer and not when the account changes hands, because our champions are changing jobs just like everybody else right now.
Right.
I had a customer that was brilliant, and I try to implement this whenever I can. Every 18 months, they would re-up their training for their teams because they had such a rate of turnover or exchange, right? Where people were promoted or moved jobs to a different role within their team. And so they would bring back the customer ed group and have them retrain everyone on all of the latest toys and techniques so that everybody would get a fresh perspective on the tools that they were using. And I absolutely adored that whole idea of doing that every 18 to 24 months and giving people an opportunity to sit in the same room. Again, whether it's virtual or not, I don't know that I care anymore, but at the time we did it, it was live, but in a room. But we could build that, and we can get that synergy back, right? And the levels of engagement, because life cycle and engagement are things that go together, right? If they're not engaged, there's a real good chance they're not going to stay a customer.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not always true, but yeah.
That engagement piece is so important. And you have like your measures of how many people are viewing your videos and customer ed. And your site traffic and those kinds of things, but nothing will tell you how engaged a customer is more than seeing them click on an educational piece in an email. And then if you can like work with your analytics team and track through to them actually doing what you taught them inside the product, that's like the magic of,
Gold.
oh, this is working. I can get content directly in front of my customers who are ready to implement it right away. And we see that, I mean, this, fully made up stat here, but like you could um effectively report on, we have found that by putting education content in our Lifecycle emails, we see a 20% lift in conversions on that side of the product. Like customers within 5 days are up and running on that piece of the product that they weren't using. We have all these customers who use 10% of the product, and by adding education pieces into the emails, we now have most of those same customers, those 10% customers, are now at 25% or 30%. Like that's a great stat to be able to report into your leadership team.
And then if we build all of this, if we establish that this should exist and that it probably already exists, who should own it moving forward? I mean, somebody needs to kind of say, this is what the path looks like, even though my role in the path is at points, this one, and this one. This is where I'm the active person or team, or that's the communication or whatever that point in the journey really is. But who should own the entire journey and the planning for the journey and the updates to the journey, right? We said that it's not a static thing. It's something that changes as our product changes, as our culture changes, as our people change, as our customers change and grow.
So it's very rare that it is a person's job to own customer journey. Even when you have a role like customer marketing or customer lifecycle, you might have a bullet point in the job description that says like own customer journey end to end. But it's very rare that that's like the focus of your role. And this is the problem with journey mapping, is that it typically gets thrown into a lot of different job descriptions. And that happens particularly in organizations where like there's some siloed work happening, and one hiring manager isn't talking to the other, and they're hiring similar roles, or they're hiring without like having that conversation about customer journey. But there's an opportunity, even if it's not your full-time job, to own customer journey. There's an opportunity for really anyone who wants to own it. The ownership is really, I think the right owner for customer journey is a person who is great at bringing groups of people together and helping them work together, and then being able to kind of stay on top of the project over time. So it's a little bit project management skills, but it's also a lot more like people skills. So if you are someone who feels really good about like bringing groups of people together and working through tricky problems, customer journey mapping is for you. Not to discourage people from doing it, because it definitely is like, it can be really fun. But it is a job where a lot of people own, like you said, Kristine, like parts and pieces of the journey, and you can't map it by yourself in isolation. Like you can't just sit down and say, I'm going to map the customer journey and then just do it, because I think it takes the inputs from so many different team members. And maybe you start with like, here's what I think the customer journey is, and you share it around. And
then give everybody an opportunity to move the Miro pieces all over the place. And this is like my little color coordinated OCD brain is going, ooh, this could be so fun. Blue could be marketing, and red could be this, and orange could be this. And the next thing we know, we have a path, and we know who's the primary lead at that point in the journey. the
Yep.
guide is, right? It's like we're passing off the customer to a new guide for that part of the journey.
I think
But we still
the
need
thing that
somebody to
we're
coordinate it, I
most
think.
right. I've seen a lot of companies say, like, the leadership will say we need a customer journey map because, they heard at a conference that that's a good thing to have. And so there's this request for a customer journey map, but there isn't really any structure given around it. It's not given kind of the time of day that is necessary for it. So you have to be able to track that customer journey and the mapping of it and the work that you're doing back to revenue, back to meeting business goals through that work.
And the same
So
conversation, right, Shannon? The strategy and vision, right? We have to be able to tie
yes,
everything back and align
yeah,
to those things.
What is the goal? I mean, you said they say we want to do a customer journey map. And I think it's even helpful to say, like, what does that mean to you? Or what does that
correct.
look like to you? Because go to Miro and look, type in customer journey map, and there's like 25 different templates.
Yep.
Well, are you looking for the different stages and the emotions that they're feeling? Are you looking at the tech stack that facilitates each of these things? Like, what are you trying to do with this journey
What's
map?
the end goal? Yeah. Like why, what are we trying to get at? And I think that it's a question that people should be asking and all the time about everything is like, well, okay, yeah, I hear you. And we can definitely do that. Before I start diving into it, I would love to understand what that means to you, what the end goal is, what you'd like to do with a customer journey map once you have one, because there are lots of ways that I can approach this. And I want to make sure that it's going to work the way that's best for the business and also gets you, my leader, the outcome that you're looking for. Being able to turn around and say that is so much more powerful and really gives them an opportunity to think about what they want from the project. So many customer journey map conversations just end up like in this forever. It's like the never ending journey of work is like, okay, well, we're going to map it. We're going to bring together 8 people across the company and we're going to map it. And then we're going to meet every, once a month and we're going to keep going through it. And then we're going to present it, but we never really get to the presenting part. We get to the mapping part and everyone gets
part.
Yeah. The like, what are we going to do with it part? So
That
if you know that going into it, makes it a lot easier.
Well, it comes back to the iteration too, right? We talk all the time in customer ed and customer marketing about the iteration of the things that we do and that we shouldn't wait for perfect. We should get it out there and get it active and get it into a point where people can comment so that the next iteration is better than the last one. And I don't think this is any different, right? I think this is just as important to iterate it. Let's get something out there that people can see so that we can enhance it and make it more detailed or better or whatever better means, right? As we move forward with it.
Always layer it over time.
Yes. And our work is so collaborative. Like we just can't be precious about this stuff. We just have to get something started. And so while it might not be, okay, we don't have the ideal state yet, but we're going to map the current state. And then we're going to look at opportunities to plug in education.
Mhm.
We're going to look at places where once we map the current state, we see a giant gap that we can go and like, what's the kind of low hanging fruit of your customer journey map? And identify those things. And then again, tying them back to metrics for the company, then gets you the time and resources that you need to go and implement those things. If you can say, hey, we want to, these education pieces aren't getting eyes. We have these customers, like this cohort of customers that's only using 10% of the product. We want to plug education into the customer lifecycle so that we can see if there's a lift here. And we're going to measure it over the next 3 months and we're going to come back and report on it. And then when you obviously get to report on positive results, because like, why wouldn't there be from that? Then you get leadership goes like, oh, okay. How can we do more of this? What do you need? What kind of resources do you need? What people do you need? What time do you need? Like, let's get it on the calendar,
Which brings us to our summary, right? We need to start wrapping things up.
Yeah.
Yep.
So life cycle and journey can be the same, but are not necessarily the same. right?
Right.
And we just need to jump in and do it.
Mhm.
Is kind of the two big ones. And then what was the third one that we talked about?
Ownership.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that it's
it's
a collaborative effort, and some like just, somebody has to take ownership. And if that's you, that's fine, because it's actually not, you're not the
You're
like
the
ultimately
owner.
responsible
Yeah.
person. You're not going to do it by yourself. You're just going to organize people. You're going to send meeting invites, and
Mhm.
you're going to ask people to show up. Like,
This is
that's kind of,
I worked with an executive who really struggled with the word ownership because it
Mhm.
felt like when you were talking about being precious with something, like we're
Mhm.
kind of holding tightly onto it. I think it's more like a facilitator. Who's the organizer? Who's the facilitator of
Yes.
the journey mapping effort, so that it's more about gathering the people and gathering the minds, and not so much about holding tightly to the work, so much
Yes.
getting the right people involved. And then it does not become, well, who should own this? It's more about who has the skill set to facilitate and isn't going to drop the ball on it.
Right.
or
'Cause
let
that's
it, and
critical.
who's not going to let it slide, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Because
Yeah.
people, it is one of the things that it doesn't always get all the limelight, so
Mhm.
people don't always think of it as being the thing they need to do, right? That
But
we
I
need
think
to
it doesn't get the
keep on this.
limelight. It doesn't get that attention because you don't start from intention. If you know what the leadership team's goals are with customer journey map, if you know where doing this work ties into your business objectives, then then it can get some attention. Then you can start to bring it up in all hands meetings, and you can, start to like really leverage your work to make a big impact on the company. And um, particularly if for a team like customer marketing, where you're kind of always looking to prove the value of the team, this is a huge opportunity to do that.
It makes me think, I think customer journey mapping has probably gotten a bad rap because it's been a cumbersome, laborious process that has not resulted in anything, because it was an exercise or an activity more
Yeah.
than it was about taking action
It was a
on it.
chore.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's because we should do it, rather than we have this intention. And so every time we're presenting on it, like we're talking about, hey, we have this customer journey mapping effort with the intention of doing XYZ. And then when you talk about the journey map, okay, we mapped out the first version of our customer journey, and we identified X, Y, and Z opportunities. These are on the board for things to tackle. Hey, here's where we ended up tackling it. And that's where I will forever like champion people who hold people accountable for things like this, because otherwise it does fall by the wayside. It gets a bad
Yeah.
rap. People don't want to invest in it because they see it as just a waste of time. But if you have someone who can actually hold people accountable, report on the progress, and keep that intention front and center to keep people from going on these tangents, because that's so easy. Well, now customer journey mapping becomes a really effective, powerful tool that it was ultimately really meant to be. But it has kind of been misused in a lot of organizations, or,
Yeah.
from a distracting activity rather than a good use of time.
Yeah. Oh, we haven't updated that in 2 years. No.
Mhm.
Make it effective for the company.
Yeah.
So that's it, right? We're going to define it up front so that we know if we are using the words life cycle and journey interchangeably, and that
Mhm.
they mean exactly the same things. We are going to get in and iterate and build and hold accountable based on
Yes.
alignment to goals and outcomes. So I think that's what we came up with today, right?
Yeah. I love
All
it.
right, there we
That
go.
makes me
All right,
excited
then.
about customer journey mapping.
Yeah. All right,
All right.
guys.
Well,
Thank you again
thanks,
for
Val.
joining us this session, and we will see you all next time.